Hi, folks. Welcome to the Prepared Homestead. This is Travis. Thank you all for stopping by to watch. I have a good guest for you to kind of learn some insight on today. This is someone that he has a YouTube channel also. He follows me, I follow him, and a lot of what he says and from what I gather, thinks and believes is very much in line with myself and a lot of you. But he also has knowledge in areas that I'm a little weak on, and so I wanted to bring him in to talk about this. Is Jason Casper. You can find his YouTube channel by his name, Jason Casper. That's Jason with a Y. And he talks about, like I said, a lot of the similar things we do, but he also has a lot of knowledge in um, markets, crypto, Bitcoin, things like that. And I wanted to get his take on that because that is being talked about a lot, along with the overall kind of collapsing economy that we're living in. So, Jason, thank you for coming on the show today. It's a great honor to have you on here.
Yeah, Travis, thank you so much for having me. It's actually an honor for me to be on your show. I've been following you for a very long time.
Well,
So,
thank you. Can you, before we get started, just kind of tell us a little bit about yourself for the folks that's never heard of you, maybe how you got started or however you want to go with that.
yeah, for sure. Well, for me, I guess where I am right now stems from the fact that I never wanted to have a job. So, I know that sounds kind of lazy, but back when I was in high school, my friends are getting jobs and they're talking about going to college. And I'm like, there has to be a way to make money, without having a job. And that led me down the road of basically affiliate marketing and stuff like that. And so when I was in high school, I was blogging and affiliating and basically learning how to start a business online, which at the time seemed like the thing to do. And as I got older, I started to realize that the dollar was rapidly losing its value.
Mhm.
I read a book, The Creature from Jekyll Island, learned about the Federal Reserve, learned that my dollar has lost, over 96% of its purchasing power since 1913. And when Nixon took us off the gold standard in 1971. And so that kind of got me more towards precious metals and like stacking physical gold and silver coins as much as
Mhm.
I could. And in about 2014, right around the time I got married and my wife and I were saving for a house, I listened to a podcast about Bitcoin, and that kind of put cryptocurrency on my radar. And I started to realize this is kind of as close to gold as you can get in a digital form
Mhm.
because there's no middleman and there's a fixed supply. And there actually does require a certain amount of work as computing power to mine the Bitcoin and all this. Um, and so then in 2016, I listened to another podcast where somebody was extremely bullish on Bitcoin. They said, I know every Bitcoin is going to $1 million. And so I came home. I was at the gym and I came home. My wife and I were living in a little apartment in the city. And I said, you know what? I think we should put all our life savings into this thing called Bitcoin. And typically she would say, Jason, that's very irresponsible. We need to,
Right.
but she was like,
You
okay,
need to be checked in somewhere.
yeah, yeah, because she balances me out. I'm like a ready, fire, aim kind of guy. I just go do
Right.
something. If there's an issue, I'll figure it out, right? So she was up for it. So we did. We put everything we had been working for and saving into Bitcoin, and then it went from about $600 to $20,000 in the next few months, and that was a crazy eye opener for me about wow, okay, you can make money in these markets, but with the volatility.
Mhm.
And in hindsight, what I did was very irresponsible, and the Lord had mercy on me in those decisions and favor on me. But that got me into charting and technical analysis to the point where right now I would consider myself actually a day trader. So
Mhm.
I I don't necessarily specialize in cryptocurrency, but I specialize in analysis. So coming to a chart and you can analyze the chart and you can use different tools and risk management to basically grow an account over time. And you go in and go out pretty quick, like
Mhm.
sometimes within a few hours, a few days. But that's kind of where I'm at right now with it.
Yeah, I have probably just enough knowledge and all that to get myself in a lot of trouble. Watch
Yeah,
channels like yours and a few others, occasionally, and I try to learn. It's I don't know. I probably if I put enough time into it, I could, but it is very interesting. You're right. I mean, you can make a lot of money. You can lose a lot of money very quickly, and I think most people know that. Just a little short side story. Remember it was probably 2011, maybe 2012, somewhere in that time period. I had a friend of mine that was, all into this new thing called Bitcoin. And of course, I thought this is crazy. And he was wanting me to put a lot into it. And I don't remember what it was back then, but in 2011 or so, it was quite small. And if I'd only done that then,
I
but
know, right?
we hindsight's 2020, like you said, but here we are today with our economy that most, I'm sure your listeners and my listeners are awake enough to see that this is not right. We're even even the mildest predictions, well, we might have a little bit of a recession, it might be this, might be that, but yet when we start looking at the bigger picture, there's a lot of really bad stuff going on that could lead us down the road of I mean, to not sound like a, doom and gloom kind of guy, but impending doom. And a lot of people are worried about their money and worried about, can they make something off of this? Is there still time if they know what they're doing to kind of turn a profit? Should they put their finances, put their money into Bitcoin or something like that? And I know you're dealing with this every day. You're like you said, you're a day trader, and I just wanted to get your opinion. For the average person, that may not have the knowledge that you do, is right now too risky to be in the markets, or could the average person still probably make some money here and there, even if they have a small amount of knowledge?
It's really difficult to answer that question, Travis, because as you know, there are so many moving variables
Hmm.
right now in the economy. Um, you know, I'm a big believer in the 4-year Bitcoin cycle, and basically the trend being your friend. So for the past your listeners might not be familiar, but the way the Bitcoin algorithm works is every 4 years there's something called the halving,
Hmm.
where the amount of Bitcoin that gets mined per transaction gets cut in half. And this basically creates a demand, which historically has caused a bull market in crypto.
Hmm.
And we are right now about 8 months away from the next halving. Historically speaking, this is actually the time to accumulate Bitcoin and other altcoins for the bull market that will begin in around April 2024 and end, sometime in 2025. One of the biggest, I guess, rebuttals that people have to this is the fact that Bitcoin has only existed in a global bull market, right? I mean, the S&P 500 hitting all-time highs. I mean, basically since 2008, the last big recession, everything's been pumping. And so, they're like, well, you're looking at Bitcoin in the context of everything else pumping. You're not looking at it in the context of a worldwide recession or depression. And so
Right.
it's one of those things where it's really difficult to say. And I would say to anybody who's looking to get into crypto to potentially make some money on it, historically speaking, this is the time to be accumulating, right?
Hmm.
Everybody's very bearish right now on everything. Um, and that's typically the time when you should be accumulating,
Right.
Um, once CNN and your grandma start saying it might be time to get into Bitcoin, that's when you sell. Um, which is true. That happens every single time.
Hmm.
Um, but I would caution anybody who's getting into any kind of investment, and the three most important things that anybody can do if they're looking to invest in anything, and this applies to a long-term position hold if you're looking to hold Bitcoin for a year or more, or even a day trade where you're holding for 10 seconds, is you have to have an entry plan and an exit plan already predetermined for either a win or a loss. Because if you don't have that, you're guaranteed to lose money no matter what. You could buy Bitcoin now, it could go to $1 million. You could hold that thing all the way back down to zero and end up with a loss, right?
Hmm.
Or you could buy Bitcoin now and just keep holding it. It could go to zero. You have to have a predetermined, where am I going to take profit? Where am I going to get out if it goes against me, and you have to calculate that risk and say the risk to me is worth the potential reward. That's
Right.
what I would. That's true with everything. I would say this as well. When it comes to the markets, right? There's a difference between the real world and on paper,
Mhm.
right? On paper, things are great, right? The
Right.
S&P 500 has just rallied. We're putting in a double top, basically,
Right.
right? Uh, and so on paper, things are great. On paper, inflation is coming down, right?
Mhm.
But in the real world, things have never been worse, right?
Right.
People's purchasing power is at an all-time low. People don't have jobs. And so this discrepancy, I think, is something that if you know what you're doing, you can take advantage of. Because the whole system is set up so that the people who know what they're doing can make money. Everything's fake. The money's fake. It's monopoly money. It's not based on anything.
Mhm.
But if you know how to take advantage of the market, you can also make more monopoly money yourself. And so I kind of look at the market as a way for me to play their game. And I don't have any hope in Bitcoin. I don't have any hope in the dollar. The only thing I truly trust in is God,
Mm.
right?
Right. Amen.
And Yeshua, Jesus. Everything could be taken away from you in an instant. But
Yes.
um, I look at this as a means to acquire tangible assets and as a means to become more self-sufficient.
Mhm.
That's the reason I'm in these markets. I'm also a homesteader. I'm not on your level. I don't have long enough beard. I don't think. Maybe in a few years.
It takes a while.
I look like a 12-year-old Amish kid if I try and grow my beard out. So
Oh, that my son says the same thing. I tell him, my beard didn't start getting this full thickness until I was easily into, like, my early to mid-30s. It really didn't start getting that way, but, you basically kinda answered my next question I was gonna have, but, um, for preppers, you said you're a homesteader, homestead preppers, folks like that are listening to my channel, um do you look at Bitcoin or really any crypto as something as just something that you can trade, like you said, to kind of turn some cash? Or is this something that as a long-term investment, should anyone, say, okay, I'm going to take this much and put it into Bitcoin just as to kind of have as a long-term investment, or is that kind of foolish? Because I hear that argument that it's more for long-term, or then I hear the other argument, well, it's just, to like turn a profit, like you say, in day trading. Which do you see crypto, or can it be both?
I think it's both. I operate as if it is both. So I
Okay.
hold Bitcoin on spot, and I'm looking to hold it long term for hopefully $80,000 Bitcoin in the next few years.
Hmm.
Um, but I'm also day trading it, and I trade derivative future contracts. So I'm trading. I'm basically betting. It's like a sports bet when you're trading derivative futures.
Right.
I'm just betting on the direction of the price. It could go down, and I can make a profit. Um, but I think with all things, given the current environment, it's about diversifying. I know everyone says that, but there's a reason why everyone says that. Bitcoin could be gone tomorrow.
Right.
Um, so you should have some Bitcoin in case something happens to the dollar. You should have some Monero, for privacy coins. If you need to buy things without anybody being able to track you, you should have physical metals, and you should have cash, and you should have money in a real bank account. Because if you can diversify, then if one thing goes away, you
Right.
have something else. And I think that's the best approach to take. The problem becomes, and I see this a lot in the space, is people latch on and they marry a certain crypto coin, or even I call it the cryptocurrency gospel. I mean, like, there's people out there who literally believe that we can stop the new world order by using decentralized cryptocurrencies because we'll negate the need to have a centralized bank, and then the governments will go down. It's like, well, first of all, that doesn't line up with what the Bible says, so I know
Right.
it can't be true. But second of all, that's just this is like a pipe dream. That's not reality. So you got to diversify.
Right. And I also I was thinking about this earlier, something I wanted to get your opinion on. Um, and maybe I'm seeing something that's not there, but I've noticed in the kind of a couple of different opposing trends in the news over the last several weeks or several months. On one hand, I'll see these news reports that it makes it sound like that when it's dealing with some type of crypto, that the government or some type of government, whether it's ours or foreign, is, oh, crypto's bad, stay out of crypto, we need to regulate it, we need to, stop it. And on the other hand, it almost looks like there's the government is wanting to, as you said, kind of marry crypto, but in a sense to control it. Where do you see um or do you have an opinion on that of the new world order, this, of course they're trying to push central bank digital currencies. um do you see them trying to control it more or trying to outlaw it more? Or I mean, I don't know, I've thought of this, which direction are we going to go? Are we going to see where they're you know, trying to manipulate and control it? Because there's a lot of people that think that, and I don't have any evidence, but a lot of people think the government does manipulate a lot of crypto values, hold a lot of Bitcoin. So I didn't know if you had an opinion on that. If, we're going to see, governments in the New World Order try to destroy crypto in some way or make it illegal or just control it.
Yeah, my opinion on this is that, well, I have a theory actually that probably Bitcoin, even though the white paper makes it seem like more of an an anarchist, like an anarcho-capitalist kind of movement,
Hmm.
it wouldn't surprise me at all if this was some kind of, intelligence project to kind of introduce the idea, just to get a beta test, see how it would work.
Right.
Um, I'm not saying I definitely believe that, but it wouldn't surprise me. And right away, once people realized what Bitcoin was, like the true Bitcoiners in the beginning, I
Right.
would say like the pre 2018 mindset, these guys were like, anti-government, very libertarian.
Oh yeah.
And, but we all knew, I say we, I wasn't really there in the beginning, but they all understood that this is where the finance has to go, period.
Hmm.
Because if we want full transparency, if we want to end the corruption, this is where finance has to go, period.
Hmm.
And now we're seeing governments latch on and fully embrace this idea that yes, this is the future of finance.
Hmm.
And so we're seeing basically centralized cryptos like the CBDCs and all these kinds of things.
Hmm.
Now, when you look at certain projects, some of these really big crypto projects like Ethereum and like Chainlink, Ethereum, Peter Thiel funded Vitalik Buterin to create Ethereum.
Hmm.
And so he's just a regular old finance guy. You look at something like Chainlink, the purpose of the crypto Chainlink is to link all the blockchains together. So it's one comprehensive kind of, it's kind of like, you'd be using Bitcoin, but not even knowing that you're using Bitcoin, right?
Right.
You'd just be making a transaction. Well, the World Economic Forum, they're like super supportive of Chainlink. And so I kind of see that and even the Federal Reserve has said that the future United States CBDC is either going to run on or parallel to the existing blockchain
Hmm.
networks that already exist. And so I see there's going to be more regulation, there's going to be more control. I don't think it will necessarily be outlawed, but people will be pushed into a corner where it's technically not illegal, but it's like it's going to be very inconvenient to use these things in a real world setting. Like if you want to purchase things online or purchase things through companies on the, real market, you probably won't be able to do it without going through some kind of CBDC unless you're on some black market, which means now you're a criminal.
Hmm.
So, we got to cross those bridges if and when we get there.
Yeah, I've heard other people on, whether it be YouTube or other places, and they're like, well, the United States is, we're so far away from digital currency. It's a long way off, and
Mhm.
or maybe even there are people that think that it's never going to happen. And I sit back and I look at, like you said, between all the crypto stuff that's going on and how it's exploded. I can, like
Right.
you said, I can remember that the only people that were really talking a lot about, supportively talking about Bitcoin, where everyone was like, man, they're a little crazy, they're on the fringe. And now it's normal. It's not fringy to be in Bitcoin. It used to be that way. Um and all of crypto anymore. I don't see it. I don't see how it's possible for the United States to not, go
Yeah.
towards some type of digital currency.
I
I'm
mean,
not
they've
saying I support it. I don't agree with it, but I don't see how it's possible, not on a global stage. Everyone's doing it.
agreed, agreed, and I believe that, hasn't the United States already agreed to go in that direction?
Yeah.
Um,
And it would be crazy to think that it would be like the United States would reverse itself. We already, uh, with our fiat currency, the Federal Reserve notes, even though, of course, it's not as restricting and controlling as CBDC, they do have a certain level of control over it, and it's crazy to think that they would just have some kind of Bitcoin, some unregulated,
right,
decentralized. It's going to be, and that's the thing. All of everyone from like European Union, the World Economic Forum, several other countries have indicated that it's going to be very controlling. This central bank digital currency, it's going to be, they'll be able to shut it off. They'll be able to change the value of it. Oh, well, your one skin color, yours is worth more, yours is worth less, or whatever it is. And I I think that's one of those things that so many people, it's like they just want to ignore it, even in the kind of preparedness world, because they don't know what to do. They don't know how
yeah,
to prepare for it. Um, and I honestly, I don't know if there is a great way, but Bitcoin might be. It might be. It may be one of those ways. I mean, obviously, like you said, holding, like hard assets like gold and silver and things like that. But Bitcoin could be one of those ways. It's still kind of, I guess, up for you know to see if it's gonna happen or not, or gonna be allowed to happen. Um, but
right.
but that's where, I hold some Bitcoin for that possibility. I certainly don't put all of our money into it, but I do hold some Bitcoin, and that's the idea, is that, well, maybe I could use it to say, somehow pay my property taxes, you know,
Yeah.
somehow, some way, and not have to go with the Federal Reserve, crypto, their digital currency. So it's possible. Wouldn't you say that cryptocurrency may be a way, at least for a time period, for people to not have to jump right into central bank digital currencies?
Yeah, and I would say probably more so are some of those privacy coins like Monero and
Right.
Pirate Chain, because those cannot be tracked. But yeah, especially like with the things that you're a big proponent of, like localism, and creating local economies,
Mhm.
where people agreed, hey, we're going to accept Monero amongst each other. Like maybe I grow trees for lumber or whatever. That's really, I think, where it's going to have to go if there's a CBDC that comes around, and if you don't toe the line or do the things you have to do, well, then you're excluded from the financial system.
Mhm.
It becomes a little bit difficult to think about having to pay property taxes if you don't have the most recent medical procedure that's necessary for your currency to work,
Right.
in Bitcoin. But what makes it even more complicated is the fact that let's say like tomorrow there's a CBDC, and unless you're a transgender, you can't buy or sell or something.
Right.
Well, if there's not already a consensus amongst people like us to say we're going to accept Monero, and we also agree that the value of one Monero is such and such,
Mhm.
it's not really going to work. Right now, we measure everything against the yardstick of the dollar,
Right.
which is a moving target anyway.
Right. Yeah,
you
exactly.
know, so it becomes really, really difficult to kind of extrapolate into the future and say how could this work? How would it work? Um, which is why like you say, every single video, you got to prepare mentally, physically, spiritually, and just do the best you can to be as self-sufficient as possible, because the more we can unplug from the system, and the
Yeah.
more we can create local support systems, then the less of an effect these things will have on us. But it will obviously, the effect is still going to be, it's a crazy thing to think about.
Yeah. It's not gonna be easy. You mentioned what we do here locally. When we have our local meetings, I've talked about it several times. We have an area in the building that's just an open market, and if we have if there's too many people that bring their stuff, we'll go outside and do it if it's a nice day. We'll just have tables set up, and I mean, it's pretty cool. There's like, little children are really getting involved in it. They'll bring like little crocheted things that they've made. There's a boy, he's 12 years old, and he has well, his dad's helped him, but he's learned how to make knives, and he's really good at it. Like, he puts them in a little forge. He got one for his birthday. And then, of course, there's people that have businesses and stuff. But anyways, the point is we encourage bartering. We encourage gold and silver, and then we also encourage, people to use crypto. We're encouraging alternative currencies. And I tell people, it's not that, the Federal Reserve is the paper money is awful. I mean, it is awful, but at least you can still use it to buy things. I said, but when we're here doing this as an open market, I said we should be trying these alternative currencies as a way to just train ourselves to learn how to do it. If some guy's sitting there selling t-shirts he made, and I pull out, some silver coins or something, how much does he want? How much is it worth in silver? Especially if
Right.
you don't consider the US dollar. But Bitcoin,
Yeah.
Monero, there's people that'll have like a little QR scan code on their table. But the point is that we're trying. It's not perfect, but we're trying, and people should be doing that. Should at least be thinking about that. That it's especially for like small groups, communities, and stuff. Like you said, of trading back and forth using these alternative means, because um, the paper money, my opinion is it's going out. It's something will most likely happen to cause it to lose value, and then they'll say, well, it's a good thing we have this digital currency lying around. We'll just switch over to that. Uh,
Right.
and then at that point, it's like the last little bits of freedom that we have are gone. I mean, they're going to be able to track any gun purchases, or just shut it off, or ammunition, or anything else, anything, gold. They don't want you buying gold. Well, they'll turn off your digital currency. You can't buy gold with it. So encouraging people to use things like, cryptos, Monero, you mentioned, that's definitely a good one. We encourage that a lot at our meetings. And then other things, alternative, like gold and silver, because we have to, as a people, I think we have to kind of retrain ourselves, and break the habit of everything is US dollar based. You know,
Right.
it's all, everything's connected to the US dollar, because and like I've said in my channel before, if you're tethered to that, then when it goes down, you could go down with it. So we have to start rethinking. And I think having the crypto is an option. It doesn't fix everything. I think you would agree with that. It's not a complete fix, but it is an option to have stuff like Bitcoin and Monero and maybe a few others.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's just an alternative to, any other thing you would use to barter. And, as the market stands right now, I mean, even in the stock market, I mean, there's plenty of opportunity to extract money from these markets in these times as well. Like,
Sure.
if people do have the time to learn how to do, I mean, it's a skill like anything else.
Hmm.
But I would say that there's still plenty of opportunity to actually use cryptocurrency as a means to acquire more tangible assets. Like, there's still a time window for that, and
Right.
it's not necessarily um, the be all end all, but it's an opportunity for
Right.
sure.
And I'm not the expert. Correct me if I'm wrong, but Bitcoin is down a little bit right now. It might be a good time to get into it. I don't know. You're definitely more an expert, but for someone that's been waiting for that right moment, um, I don't know.
Yeah,
It's
maybe.
what's it
I
down, like 5,000 or so? I haven't even looked at it this morning.
Yeah, it took a huge dump yesterday,
Yeah,
man.
yeah. I haven't seen what I don't know if it's up or down yet today or not.
It's
Uh,
done nothing. It's done nothing. I haven't even touched it. I haven't even entered any kind of trade today. It's in a no trade zone for me.
yeah,
But yeah, I do I do think if the historical cycle repeats, that between now and probably next year is a good time to be accumulating, dollar cost averaging in, um, because if the cycle continues,
Mhm.
is going to pump. And like I was saying before, I do believe that a lot, like the entire financial system is fake, right? Because
Mhm. Yeah, it
stock
all
market,
is.
yeah. So I believe that we're going to see everything pump again. I mean, it's very strange to me that you've got all these financial experts calling for a massive recession when in the past, when there was about to be a massive recession, nobody was calling for it.
Mhm.
So it makes me think, like, what are they trying to do? Like, get everybody out of the market? It seems like maybe this is just a theory that I have. They're going to pump their bags again, like they always do. You
Sure.
know, I
They're gonna
mean,
try to squeeze everything they can out of it.
that's what they're going to do. 2008, they wrecked everybody, and then they pumped their bags. And in 2020, they wrecked everybody in the flash crash, and then everything hit new all-time highs after everyone was already wrecked and everyone's business was closed down, and you
Mhm.
know, and so it just wouldn't surprise me if we see something like that again. I mean, this has to end in one of two ways: either hyperinflation or a complete collapse. Like the Fed
Right.
is burning the candlestick from both ends. You
Oh,
can't raise interest rates and also bail out banks at the same time.
yeah.
That's counterintuitive, you know?
Yeah, we're
So,
the amount of debt is just it's astronomical. I mean, it's at this point, I mean, I know many of us have joked for years it's just monopoly money, but it really is anymore. When we're going into debt as a nation at the rates that we are, it's, you know, it's not worth anything, and I think people are starting to
yeah,
finally realize that. People are starting to wake up and like, "Wait a minute," like you said at the beginning, my money's not buying anything anymore. It's not worth as much anymore. I don't know if you saw, it was going around the last few days online, and I think most of the people, and it was a little compilation of, like, little TikTok videos, most of the people probably, or at least appear to be, maybe, left-leaning people, and they were shocked at how they can't afford groceries anymore. One guy, he's sitting there, the camera at his table, and he's only got a few items of groceries, and like, "This cost me $200." He said, "I can't even eat a week off of this. It cost me $200." So people are starting to wake up a little bit. I don't think they've put two and two together that it's because of, ridiculous spending and printing of money and stuff. But at least people are starting to realize that our economy is probably not as good as they've been telling us for a while. You know,
yeah,
uh, and may at some point, I don't know. At some point, will there be more bank crashes? I think so. They've been predicting that. And then, of course, the Fed and stuff will probably jump in and start bailing people out like they've done every
yeah,
other time. And it's like they're just piling more and more on it. And like you said, at some point, the system is going to have to release pressure. Uh,
yeah,
and the bigger it gets, probably the worse that pressure release is going to be.
yeah. And this is good. If the Fed does, and I do believe we are going to see them pivot and start QE again.
Hmm.
They probably won't call it QE. They didn't call it QE when they like bailed out these banks that went down just
Hmm.
recently.
Right.
They just magically had more money on the balance book,
Yeah.
but it wasn't QE. And if you think it is, you're dumb.
Yeah.
But but yeah, when they do that, it will pump crypto. I mean,
Hmm.
one of the main reasons why Bitcoin went all the way up to $70,000 in 2020 is because of all the printing. That
Yep.
money goes into crypto and stocks.
Hmm.
So, you know, when the Fed starts printing, that's also a bullish sign for risk assets
Right.
like Bitcoin and crypto. And it's very interesting to look at the charts. Look at the dollar is inversely correlated to the Bitcoin cycles as well.
Mhm.
So when the dollar comes to major support and starts to bounce, that's usually when Bitcoin tops out and starts to come down, and vice versa. The dollar comes to the bottom or it comes to the top and rejects. Bitcoin starts its bull cycle. So
Right.
I,
I wanted oh, go ahead, sorry.
it's I guess a little awkward to explain because I don't have a chart, but the dollar is printing a pattern right now on the chart that it has historically before it really starts to go down in value, like a double top kind of pattern where it
Mhm.
really looks like within the next few months the dollar is going to have a major downturn. I think it's probably going to pump a little bit more and put in like some kind of a double top, and then we're going to see a big pullback. And when we see that, it's probably going to line up with the Fed starting to print money, or at least create more money somehow. And
Mhm.
that will also probably line up with the next Bitcoin halving and the next big bull run for crypto. So I'm looking out for that to happen in probably like 8-9 months.
Right. That would line up with probably several other things too. So, I wanted to ask you one thing also, because a lot of people, especially in the preparedness community, when we talk about cryptocurrency, and I'm sure you've hear this all the time, is that, well, it's all, I mean, obviously it's not real, but like you said, none of it's real. I mean, at least with Bitcoin, there is some labor and cost to mine the coins, but it's digital. So what do you do to protect it? What if there was some power outage? What if there was an EMP? What if, all that? And there are ways, and I didn't know if you care to kind of touch on that a little bit, because I know a lot of my listeners, that's a concern. How do you protect your cryptocurrency?
Right.
If your computer crashes, if everything's just on your computer or on your phone, what do you do to protect it? And I didn't know if is that something you'd like to kind of at least briefly cover, of ways that people can protect and lock up their bitcoins.
Yeah, sure. So Bitcoin isn't actually stored anywhere,
Mm,
which is what makes it nice. It's like the internet, right? The internet isn't in one spot. You can't like shoot a computer down and or remove like a warehouse of servers and now the internet's gone.
right.
It's just an algorithm that exists on nodes. So any computer that's processing Bitcoin transactions is a node, and it's basically keeping that network afloat.
Hmm.
And so your Bitcoin is on that blockchain, and the way you have access to your chunk of Bitcoin is by having your own private keys, right?
Hmm.
So you have private keys, which allows you access to this one chunk of the Bitcoin algorithm of the Bitcoin blockchain. So if your computer goes down, your Bitcoin is not on your computer. If you have your seed phrase memorized, written down on a piece of paper in a safe or somewhere where only you have it, then if your computer goes down, if the internet goes down temporarily, as long as there's a future with the internet, your Bitcoin will still be there.
Right.
Um, Now, if people aren't accepting Bitcoin, or if the internet never
Right.
comes back on,
Right. Yeah.
that
There are
that's an issue.
variables, but yeah, the point is that
But
you know
I would say this for people who are not into cryptocurrency, please be very careful about making sure that you actually own your private keys. If you're holding your crypto on an exchange like Coinbase,
yes.
you don't own that crypto. Even if you're putting it in, any kind of wallet that's connected to the internet, technically that could be hacked. And there's a saying, it's actually now I forget the saying. But basically, if it's your private keys, it's your crypto. If
Right.
someone else has your keys, then it's not yours.
Yeah, that's true. You don't want to just keep it on these exchanges. And that's what a lot of people don't understand, that like you said, it's everywhere basically. I mean, the only way for it to completely shut down, I guess, would be to, shut down every server everywhere. I don't know that that's even possible.
Right.
It's kind of like artificial intelligence. I hear people all the time, they just need to shut it down. I'm like, it's not really possible at this point.
Yeah.
I mean, these algorithms, they're everywhere. So there's definitely some good and bad, and I don't think, and that, you and I were talking before we started. It's not that we're saying that, yeah, Bitcoin or any kind of crypto is the best thing ever, and that's where we should all be putting our money into it. But it does have a purpose for a time. It's like, the technology that we're using right now. A lot of people, well, we all use it, but a lot of people they complain about it. They don't, man, I hate that the internet's causing all these problems. All these things that are being done. It's all because of the internet. And I'm sure our parents and grandparents were saying the same things about televisions.
Yeah.
Um,
They were right too.
they were right. What we have to do, I mean, I guess one option is for us to, go live like the Amish and completely cut ourselves off. But as long as we're existing in this modern world, finding safe ways, and I think maybe that's part of the key, finding safe ways to utilize the technology to benefit us. which is,
Right.
something I talk about it from a preparedness standpoint. I believe everyone should have the some level of capability of living without the technology, just in case that happens. Have that like as a backup plan. Like, okay, now if all the technology fails, then how am I going to exist? But as long as we have it, learn how to make it beneficial to us, whether it's preparedness things or making money through markets and crypto and things like that. And I think a lot of us could learn from that and realize that there's still a place for it now. Now, is there going to be a place for it when it all comes crashing down? Maybe not. But finding out and figuring out how to make it beneficial to us right now is important. And I know that's something that people can learn from watching your channel, is picking up, ways to kind of get into it and to make it work for you, make it profitable for you.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, I envy like the Amish and communities who have,
Mm.
early on, man. I mean, shun technology. A lot of people look down on that, but now in hindsight,
Right, exactly.
and if I could live like that, I would, man. I'll be
Yeah.
honest with you. But I just wasn't born into that kind of position. I don't have that kind of those kinds of skills and knowledge. So,
Mm.
I look at the technology as a way for me to build infrastructure. That's
Mhm.
that's really how I
Right,
look at it.
right. I mean, I had actually, before I started my YouTube channel, I had technology and internet and all that kind of stuff. In fact, when I was young, when the internet was first really starting to pick up speed with private consumers, I was kind of on the cutting edge at that time. And then about 2 years before I started on my YouTube channel, I decided I was just going to take a break from the internet completely, and I completely cut it out of my life. Like I had a regular, non-smart, stupid phone. I didn't have
Nice.
internet at my home. If the news that I got was from maybe like talk radio, but I was not online at all. I completely cut it out, and it was nice, and I resisted getting online again. But here I am, I'm have a business online now. I've turned it into something, and then there's also what I consider a ministry side of it, of helping people. And so I think that for now, um, I think it's acceptable and probably a good idea for us to benefit as much as we can from it, to like you said earlier, kind of play their game for a while. But we can't allow ourselves to be so sucked into it that we become kind of tethered like an umbilical cord to it,
Yeah.
because we know it's going to fail. But bigger than that, we also know it's evil. I mean, at the end, just maybe getting on your phone isn't evil, but we know where it leads to or what it's capable of. And so we have to be protective of that.
Yeah, it's such a fine line to walk. Man, that must have been such a nice time in your life to not
It
have the
was.
internet.
It
Like,
was. I completely turned it off.
yeah, wow. Yeah, I'll say this, like, if anyone's thinking about getting into trading, I mean, it is oh man, it could ruin your life in so many ways. So you gotta really you gotta approach it with caution because it will suck you in. I
Mm.
mean, I have not slept for weeks, and I have a very addictive personality. I'm a very extreme person, so the charts never shut off ever. It's crypto 24/7 markets. You
Mhm.
know, you get alerts if it's Shabbat. Temptation comes in. Should I check
Right,
my phone?
right. Well, that's why, I think that there are people out there. I mean, there's definitely on my listeners that probably couldn't care less at all about, what we're talking about. They have no interest in stock markets, they have no interest in crypto, they're not gonna do it. But there's certainly some that do. I hear from them all the time asking. And, that's one of the reasons why I wanted to have you on, because they can go to someone that's not just has knowledge of markets and crypto, but you also see it through the lens of understanding where we're at in this world. And that's another thing. Sometimes I'll catch just a little bit of someone that maybe more mainstream. I'm not talking like, CNBC mainstream, but maybe more mainstream. And and I wonder sometimes, are they making their predictions or whatever it is on whether it's the markets or crypto, eh, based on the possibility that this is all just gonna come crashing down soon? Looking at everything that's going on, the society problems, the morality, the wars, the food shortages, the all this kind of stuff. I wonder sometimes if these, um more mainstream economists really put all that in, or are they just looking at what the stock market and the trends are doing? I
Yeah.
I don't know. I know
I don't know either.
you'd mentioned earlier about, um, we're in a little different place this time around with crypto, that we're seemingly on the verge of a very, possible serious, financial problems, some kind of collapse. And so that's why I think, I wanted to recommend people go into you, because you at least understand that. You understand what's going on in the world today, where some financial guys just kind of aren't even, paying attention to it. And I think that factors in.
Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure.
I mean,
I
oh, sorry, go ahead.
I just want to qualify a little bit. Like by no means an expert, right? I'm not a financial guy, and like I said, what I do is I don't even necessarily understand the blockchain assets that I'm trading. I just know how to analyze a chart. So what I specialize in is not crypto, it's not finance, it's analyzing a chart.
Right.
So I just want to make that known because people say I'm like a crypto guy. It's like I honestly don't even know. I couldn't really explain to you intricacies about the different blockchains, and I don't even care. I'll be honest with you.
Right.
I don't care at all. Like I don't care what Chainlink is or the Solana blockchain. I don't care.
Mhm.
I just care like what does the chart look like because there's always an opportunity
Right.
to capitalize on that.
Right. And that may be enough for most people, because most people are the same way,
Right? Who cares?
I have some crypto. Do I understand every bit of it? Absolutely not. Do I care? Not really. you know.
Yeah.
Um so but you come at it from that perspective, and so I wanted to have you on really for that, so that people could see that there's a guy out there that has it. You may not be the expert on it, but you have some knowledge of charts and everything, and you have the perspective of, everything's coming down, because, in my opinion, when I see things like the transgender stuff, the stuff that they're pushing in schools, what they're trying to convince that, teach children, and that, a man is a woman and a woman is a man. I saw, just the other day, some scientists came out and said that we're only 2 or 3 years away before they can implant a womb in a man, and that a man can actually physically bear a child and give natural birth.
Mm.
That we're just a few years away from that. Like,
Yeah.
to me, I factor that kind of stuff in when I'm, figuring out where to put investments or what to do with my money and stuff, because to me it's all connected. It's all connected. Like, well, okay, how much farther along are we in the collapse? When I
Right.
start seeing,
Right.
how much more immoral, and really demonic the world is becoming.
Yeah.
I kind of put that's another factor for me, and a lot of people it's not, but I know that a lot of my listeners it is.
Yeah. It,
Which
it
is
it has to be
yes.
because I mean the farther a society gets away from God's design,
Mhm.
uh, there's no way a society can continue when you literally destroy the fabric
Right.
of that society, which is like the family and the man and the woman created in God's image, having children and building communities and stuff. I mean, that's
Right.
that's God's design, and it is very interesting. You look at every aspect of our society, like food. The food industry is very
Mhm.
far away from God's design. You've
Exactly.
got humanity, and even just like our day-to-day lives in this modern culture. It's like we're so far removed from like what God created. Like even having like this conversation right now,
Mhm.
it's very Tower of Babel esque where all
Yes.
this is going with AI. Like
That
every imagination that enters into a person's mind will not be restrained from him
yeah.
when we get the metaverse and all this kind of stuff.
Mhm.
And God had to literally stop that in its tracks,
Yeah.
you know, for humanity's sake. And now we're going back to that, and I just don't see how this can continue. I don't see how this can continue. You always say that that's the thing that concerns you the most out of all the other things that are going on is
Yeah.
the immorality and the
Exactly.
rejection of God's design.
Yeah. It's like everything that things that for since God created man, that the vast majority of all humans, regardless of their belief systems, have just always agreed that these are basic truths. You know,
Right.
these are truths that we don't even question, right?
You
Man,
don't
woman,
have to question.
family, right? You know, we eat food that grows or that we raise it or whatever. All those very fundamental basic truths are what's being destroyed now. It's
Yeah.
not what version of the Bible or does God exist or not. It's like these fundamental truths that like no human has ever really questioned is now being completely destroyed. And I believe, like you said, I believe it's so that they can, you know, they can show that, you know, God's irrelevant. God doesn't exist. Oh, wait a minute. Now we are gods,
Right.
that's the path that we're going down. And so we're seeing this,
Yeah.
everything is artificial. Everything is synthetic. I saw another thing just in the last couple of days, and they were talking about AI. And, a lot of people are concerned that, all these brain chips like Elon Musk's brain chip and everything's going to control us. And this one guy was saying, he said, that's actually not a problem at all. He said, because what we figure the way AI will advance in computer technology, you won't need an actual brain chip for it to control you. That it will eventually be able, through imagery and stuff, be able to control your thoughts, even without a brain chip. Like you won't need an implant in your head for AI to control you.
That's
I mean,
wild. Yeah.
that's
Wouldn't
pretty.
surprise me.
Yeah, I mean, it's like,
Yeah.
you know, at some point, God just almost has to, he has to come back. He has to deal with this, and that's why I think a lot of us, including yourself, are preparing ourselves because we
Yeah.
see a, a steady progression. It's picking up speed. We're seeing this steady progression that's picking up speed. That's removing our world so far from God that, like you said, like the Tower of Babel, at some point He has to intervene.
Yeah.
And that's I think that's why we're doing what we're doing, all of us are.
Yeah, it's a very, very strange time. And when the fecal matter does come into contact with the revolving apparatus, I think because of the lack of morality, um, the chaos is going to be crazy. It's not
Yeah.
going to be like the 30s, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah, where people still had some basic morals and respect for each.
Yeah.
Now there's like none, none
Yeah.
whatsoever. I mean, men are attacking women, men are attacking elderly women, elderly men, things that, in my childhood you wouldn't even dare to think about, you just didn't do it. And it's yeah, like all restraints and morality is just completely being thrown out the window. So yeah, it's going to be worse.
Yeah. But man, I mean, these things, at least for me, and I'm sure for you too, they just drive me closer to the Lord. It's like
Absolutely.
when you think about the implications of what could happen, and even when you read the scripture and it says, if those days are not shortened, no flesh would be saved. It's
Yeah.
like it's going to be bad, and it's really put me in a place where I don't put my trust or faith in anything except
Mhm.
Him, because I just look at what happened in Hawaii, right? You think
Right.
I personally, I go through phases of feeling safe when I like get something else. Like I just finished recently, a few months ago, my solar system here.
Mhm.
So now I'm like 100% powered, and it's like it feels good, right? But then I realize like I can't put my faith in that,
Right.
or my well or anything like my water source. And it's like, well, what if there's a train explosion and now my water's poisoned? It's like there's nothing that we can do to prepare for all the scenarios. We have to
Right.
trust in the Lord, like,
Yes.
because He owns everything.
Right.
you
Yeah.
know
Our primary prep has to be, our relationship with the Father and putting our trust in Him. And then in a physical sense, I think um, being self-sufficient and then having others around us that, that we can come together and lean on each other. I think those are probably the three main things that I would look at. And then once you go from there, you've got your physical health, your mental health, and then tools and preps and stuff like that. So, we see it as the world, like you said, as it's like it's in a death spiral down the toilet kind of thing.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, it draws us closer to God, but then also we realize more and more of what we have to do, what we need to be doing in our spiritual walk, but also the physical, because we see it happening. And it's
Yeah, some
crazy.
crazy times, man.
It is. It's
It
just,
really
it's like every time I think that I've seen, like, okay, this is like the worst, craziest thing I've ever seen. Then the next day comes around, you get online, you're like, oh my goodness.
yeah. Well, maybe someday, you'll be offline again, I'll be offline, and then we can finally have some peace
Yeah,
for a little
exactly.
bit,
Exactly.
until something crazy does happen.
Exactly.
Yeah, no?
Jason, it has been a treat and an honor to have you on, and I'm sure that many of my listeners have gotten something from this. And I want to encourage them to go over to your channel, Jason Casper YouTube channel, and subscribe. And he's, like you said, he says he's not the expert, but he's probably more knowledgeable than most of us. And at least watching what he does, you might be able to learn something too, when it comes to watching the charts, and whether it's the markets or crypto or whatever. Jason, anything else before we get off of here? Of what you want to, anything else to mention?
Well, I do just wanna say, Travis, man, I really appreciate you. I appreciate your wife, as now she's more involved in the channel. I've been
Mhm.
following you since you were called the Set Apart Homestead,
Yes.
and, I really, admire what you're doing locally in your community, getting people together, and, I really feel that the Lord has, put you on this path for a purpose, man, so I just wanna encourage you, keep
Well,
doing what you're
thank you.
doing.
Thank you very much. I'm very honored, and I enjoy watching. I don't watch a lot of YouTube videos anymore, just mostly because 'cause I'm so busy, but
I
yours
feel
is
you.
one of them that I do watch because I 'cause I'm still trying to learn, I'm trying to
Oh,
learn,
really?
and I don't know why. It's one of those things that I'm curious about. I'm curious about, like, learning to read the charts and stuff. I don't know why, but
Well, if you want, I'll set you up with my courses for free if you wanna actually learn the stuff, man.
okay,
Get you
I
out
might do that. It's a curiosity, and I dabble in it a little bit, but it's not even enough. As small as I dabble, I'm not making any money. It's more of curiosity, really.
yeah, for sure.
But yeah,
Well, yeah.
go over and check out Jason Casper, and like you said, he's got some courses and stuff if you're really wanting to get into it deeper than just watching the YouTube channels. And that way you can, especially between now and April, like you said, which is possibly, it looks like a good time to kind of get in and maybe turn some profits. You might want
Yeah.
to, folks might want to be doing that.
Yeah, I would just say one quick thing.
Sure.
My courses have nothing to do with actually, like, investing in crypto long term. It's literally about, like, being a day trader. So if you don't have time to sit there multiple hours a day and do analysis, this is not for you.
Okay. Well, Jason, thank you so much for coming on today. We'll have to do this again sometime.
Yeah, thank you,
I
Travis.
enjoyed it. And
Yeah.
folks, go check him out and subscribe to his channel because you might learn something from this guy. And again, he's as you could tell, he's a believer and a homesteader and a prepper. So, uh, giving our support to like-minded individuals is really where we should be going, anyways. Folks, you know that this is just one other aspect in getting your houses in order. It's not always just the beans and rice and the bullets. Sometimes it's doing this kind of stuff too. And so you need to be doing that, getting yourselves mentally, physically, and spiritually prepared for the coming times, and they're coming at us pretty quick. Folks, thank you all for watching today, and we'll catch you in the next video.